Yep.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Ninjutsu podcast. I'm your host, Don Rowley. I'm uh, blessed with the presence of a friend of mine. I'll let him introduce you to you and why we should listen to him on the matter of legal aspects after self-defense.
Thank you for having me on, Don. My name is Alain Burrese. And a little quick background, just set up some why we're talking about this today. I've been a martial artist since high school in the 80s. I've also been in a fight or two. Wrote about those in my first book with Paladin Press, Hard-Won Wisdom from the School of Hard Knocks. And I've written other books on self-defense and aspects of real life defending yourself, including some on the legal aspects, because among all the other stuff I've done is I'm a graduate of law school. I've been a practicing attorney in the past, including some time with the prosecution office. So I've prosecuted people, and I've prosecuted people claiming self-defense and proven that it wasn't. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this case today, and that's a little bit of what I'm bringing to the table. A law degree, a law background, prosecution background, and a lot of practical experience in the self-defense and martial art world as well.
Excellent. Okay, yeah. So the case that Alan was talking about is the Carmelo Anthony case. After he killed Anthony Metcalf, Metcalf. But yeah, uh, brain fart. Anyways,
Yeah.
so this isn't, right now, Carmelo and Anthony has been indicated for first degree murder. This is the most serious type of charge for murder you can have, correct?
Correct. He was charged with a lot. And different states have different ways they categorize murder charges and degrees or this or that. But he, from what I understand too, that he was charged with the highest that they're allowed to there in Texas, which has the greatest sentencing possibilities.
Right. So like 99 years in prison, um, or more. But let me give you the facts. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of lies being spread on the internet. So one big lie being spread, it was started by a relative of Carmelo Anthony who lives in another state within like a day or two afterwards. And that is that Carmelo Anthony had been bullied by the racist twin brothers for years. Um, Dominic Alexander, who runs the Next Generation Action Network, actually had a press conference where he said, no, they have no relationship whatsoever. Please stop spreading this because, in my opinion, I'm going to ask you this, Alan, later on. I think that if they did know, if there was history behind them and there was reason for Carmelo Anthony to hate, the person he eventually ended up killing, his name is Metcalf, um, it looks much worse. So, again, no relationships, but they're both on sports teams. They went to a school sporting event. It was a school sporting event. For some reason, Carmelo Anthony decided to bring along a knife, and there was some rain, and people accumulated under tents. Uh, Carmelo Anthony ended up in a tent to another school rather than his own. Some people said that there was a right for everyone to go with them. No, there are some rules, and someone named Sarah Fields, who is an inquisitive journalist, not really as mainstream journalist. I don't trust her. She's provided good information. Oh, and at this point, I'm going to say the information that I'm coming from I'm going to give where I got it from for the most part. If for the most part it comes from the arrest report, not from internet memes, not from internet sources. Sarah Fields, I'm saying, what she is. Maybe she's right. She's provided good information. So there's that. Mainly I'll be on the arrest report. So he goes to the tent, and again, Hunter Metcalf, the twin brother, in a later interview said that he then started making inappropriate comments. What that means, I don't know. But is evidently called attention to himself, according to Hunter, who might be a biased witness. We got to point that out, that he called attention to himself by inappropriate commenting while in the tent of another school. He was then confronted. Um, Now, at this point, there are rumors or stories on the internet. I got to point out, like people have set themselves up to pretend to be the sheriff of the county that this went in on to make comments about this. There's even a fake autopsy report, toxicology report saying that the victim had drugs in his system. These were proven to be false. There's a whole lot of things. One story going around is that Carmelo Anthony was jumped by both twins, maybe more people, and they're trying to say this was a fight for his life. And but according to the arrest report, there's just nothing to back that up. Nobody in the arrest report, which is different from witness statements. People said something to the arresting officers and others, but the um, but the arrest reports, there's no comments at all of multiple attackers. There's no comments at all of like what we would call a fight. There's a mention of being shoved. There's a mention of being grabbed. They wanted him out of the tent. So some people have said that he was shoved and he was grabbed. So again, evidently at one point, there was a confrontation. Carmelo Anthony tells Austin, uh, I think, touch me and see what happens. And at that point, the shove happens, if I get it correctly. He then, by this point, he has put his hand in a bag where he has the knife. He has a knife in hand, ready to go. And he looks at Austin and says, punch me and see what happens. This is when the grab happens. Carmelo stabs him in the heart, flees the scene, throws a knife into the bleachers, but is eventually found by a police officer. He admits, that he killed him. There's no alleged about it. I did it. The police officer is shown to where the knife is by someone who saw him throw it. And a very key statement from the arresting officer, and I bet he went over his body cam real closely to make sure he got the exact quote. Carmelo Anthony says, he put his hands on me. So not they, them attacked me. It was he, him. And he used the term laid hands on me, which can mean a lot of things. But, generally most teenage boys would not be using laid hands if they were jumped and punched and all that. I would say that if you lay your hands on my daughter, you will regret it. But, no, and if you look at the mugshot, there's no bruises, no busted lips, nothing like that. So the picture, and there's no record that I can find of Carmelo Anthony needing medical attention at all. So this is the case. And again, I gotta say that there's been stories after stories after stories spread about this, spread about that. But if you just go by the arrest record, there's nothing to back up the idea that he was jumped by multiple people. It seems to have just been a shove and a grab, and the attempt was to get him out of the tent. That's what all the evidence that is reliable, like arrest reports and stuff like that, not, and there's also in the last few days a video taken from across the field where all of a sudden people just start fleeing from the tent. So it's not like it's hard to see, but it doesn't show like what people normally do when a fight goes on, and all of a sudden everyone just starts running. And this is when the stabbing happened. So, Alan, in your opinion, based on just what I have said, of course, if more information becomes available, we can change our minds. But on just what I have laid out, what do you think an appropriate charge would be?
I think it probably is appropriate with the murder. And I think the defense, based on what we have right now, the defense claiming it's self-defense, it's going to be very difficult because, I mean, just on the face of it, how often at high school track meets are people beat to death?
In front of
I,
witnesses.
yeah, I mean, and so, I mean, it's like in that, I mean, it's not like they were in a bar late at night or in a dark alley. They were in a place with adults, other people, coaches. So to say you were in fear for your life in that type of environment, that's going to be hard to prove.
So you're
I believe, and so just you also have, I mean, which I haven't heard anybody talk about it, and I would think they would maybe. It's not a law, but he was breaking school policies and stuff by even having a weapon at the track meet. I mean, when I was a kid, I could have a knife in school. I always had a knife in school. My daughter wasn't allowed to take her plastic ninja sword to school when she was a ninja for Halloween one time because of the rules. So I mean, but I don't know if there's a law there on Texas regarding that or if it might have been school policy. But, bottom line, you have to say a reasonable person would be in
Mhm.
fear for their life to be able to use deadly force in self-defense. And I just find it hard to believe you would be in fear for your life at a high school track meet with so many other people around and coaches
Nobody
and
would
things.
nobody would jump in to stop the fatal beating, especially since it seemed to have started so early that he didn't get any, the mugshot, no facial things. Going back, I should have mentioned, you said about bringing a knife to school. That's another one of those internet rumors that are out there. They're saying some people, I call them team killer, um, are saying no. Oh, it was a cleat sharpener, which is I can't find that for sale on Amazon, which says a
Yeah,
lot. I
right.
mean, it was referred to as a knife in the arrest report, okay? Multiple times. People that found it said, I found the knife. They didn't say, well, looks kind of like a knife, but it seems to be something else. No, it's the references in the arrest report is to a knife, and I cannot find a cleat sharpener anywhere. So, but what you're saying is, again, context of where things are going, audience and stuff like that, matters a lot. I mean, um, so, hypothetical situation, you're out with seven of your friends, a guy comes up and starts, fighting with you. Um, it's a lot harder to say that you were in fear for your life because you've got seven buddies backing you up in case things really go bad. So there's that going on. It's not just one-on-one, it's people
Yeah.
surrounding you, correct?
And you also have, and I saw this quote by Jocko posted this quote today, and I thought, hey, that's a great quote for when Dawn and I are talking tonight. The quote he posted, ego clouds and disrupts everything.
Yep.
Ego clouds and disrupts everything. A quote by Jocko this morning on social media. And that saying of his, lay hands on me and see what's happened. That's ego taking over. And
That's
You knew Peyton Quinn. We both were friends with Peyton, and Peyton
yeah.
used to really be good about teaching create witnesses. Somebody comes up and it's like, "Hey, I don't want no trouble." And everybody hears, "Oh, he didn't want no trouble." It's not like, "Hey, you lay hands on me, you see what happens." You're instigating stuff. You can't be claiming self-defense if you're in there starting and agitating things along before something goes south.
I'd like you to go on to that a little bit more because, again, as I understand the law right now, not being a lawyer, um, I still have my soul. Um, a white man cannot go up to a black man, start calling him the N-word and screaming at him, and then when the inevitable fight starts, claims stand your ground and self-defense. Even if he didn't throw the first punch, he was there screaming at it. Am I fundamentally correct?
You are. And it's the same way if you and I are in a bar saying, "Hey, you got a problem? Let's step outside." We both step outside. That's not self-defense. I
That's mutual
mean,
combat.
so if this guy's saying, you lay hands on me and see what'll happen, that's not really, you can be calling self-defense if he was edging it on and maybe, and could you, and I think you can make that argument, and I think the prosecutor probably will, saying it was premeditated. He knew he had a knife. He's edging that guy on, saying, "Lay hands on me, see what'll happen. I'm going to stab you." So I think that's where they can get some premeditation if they try, if that's one of the elements. I haven't looked at Texas statute to see what elements the prosecutor has to prove
Mhm.
for the highest murder, but probably the premeditated is in there. And that's what they'll use. They'll use those statements as the premeditation, saying he planned on stabbing the guy if he laid hands on him. And that's where they'll try to get that element of the crime, is what I'm
I've heard it
guessing.
say, one of the things I've seen, people say, and please, I've heard that premeditation can be done in an instant. And by grabbing the knife, that made it premeditated. It's not like he was, while it was still in the verbal situation. So he was, and also the fact that he hid it. He was goading on his victim
I think
to,
it's a combination of doing that, especially the sayings, because the other where it's not premeditated is, the blind rage, which the classic is you walk in on your spouse in bed with somebody else and you just get, blind rage and kill them both. where they say that wasn't premeditated. It's because when you walked in and saw them together, that's what set it off. But what I think they'll try, and again, if that's an element they have to prove, they're going to use that, put your hands on me and see what happens. Because that's not really a blind, oh, he put his hands on me and I went into I reacted. No, I was edging him on. I knew what I was going to do if he put his hands on me. So it's a little different there. And there's that thin line, which they'll have to be proving one way or another. And
Right.
that's part of what they'll be doing in the trial.
Now, getting back to something I mentioned earlier, just going on that, if there was bad blood between them prior to this, if there's different stories like Austin beat up Carmelo at a party over a girl, something like that. The story, they don't have to be consistent. But if that was a case and Carmelo knew Austin was going to be at the track meet, decided to put the knife in his bag, decided to go to the tent where he knew they were, decided to egg him on, doesn't that make it worse? I mean, it looks like he's trying to
It
set it up and
It definitely can because we're not allowed to go be vigilantes. If you beat me up last week, I can't show up with a knife and get even with you today. That's what we have law enforcement for. That's what the laws are for. And
right.
so this tough guy attitude about, I'll go get even or this or that, it plays well in the movies. It doesn't play so well in real life. Well,
Now the situation might be different. Again, shared history. Carmelo takes a knife to a track meet where he knows Austin's going to be, but he avoids the tent. He goes into the bathroom which only have one way in and out, and the two twins go in after him. And when he comes out, one of them is dead. A lot more murky, I would think.
Yes, very, because it's very different facts situation. And again, we always have to go with the facts that were given. And but that definitely seems more likely to maybe be fall into a self-defense because
Right.
one, if you are trapped, that just escalated the threat when you don't have an escape route. You're outnumbered, that escalates a threat. I mean, so those kind of things could escalate a threat to where you could feel you're in danger. Where if you're in a tent with a lot of people, even though Texas doesn't is a stand your ground and doesn't have you don't have to escape, he still had an avenue to it, right? So this didn't have to happen. Where, yeah, if you're alone in a bathroom, no way out, no way to escape, multiple threats, now we've just escalated, and you may fear for your life a little bit more than out with a whole bunch of people with escape routes easily accessible and so forth. And
Right.
we're always going to look at what's reasonable. What would a reasonable person do in that situation?
Now that's a good question. How do we determine what's a reasonable person? Because everybody that does stupid stuff thinks they're being reasonable. I
and that
mean,
and that's the problem with juries. And that's why some jury things go different ways because the jury will have different levels of what they believe is reasonable. And then it comes to the attorneys, what they are putting in front of the jury. And I did see a little clip when today I was looking at a couple clips of the prosecutor and the defense attorney. And I thought it was sort of funny because the defense attorney said something about all the truth will come out in trial and stuff. And I had to chuckle because all the truth doesn't come out in trials. Trials are a big game between the attorneys of what they're going to get in front of the jury and what they're going to suppress and not let the jury know. The whole truth doesn't get shown to a jury. It's what they get in front of them. And they're going to try to get what's best for their side in front of them. And
right.
so,
Now, speaking of which, okay, so there does seem to be video of the actual confrontation. On page 6 of the arrest report, there's one officer who is delegated to take witness statements, and there's a whole bunch of names redacted for the minors. But it also mentions that he takes the cell phones of people that recorded it.
mhm.
So some people have said, if there was video that vindicated, if there's video um, that showed that it was murder and not self-defense, they would release it. I'm sure there's other on the side that if it showed that he was self-defense, it would have been released. What's your opinion on that?
We'll have to wait and see. And again, they will argue and put in motions to either get those videos allowed as evidence or prevent them from being. And so what will the jury get to see? We don't know yet. And
Okay.
so, because they'll have to prove, put us, who took the video, make sure that it wasn't altered because, you can do fake stuff now all the time. So there's going to have to be all of that kind of stuff's going to have to be clear
Digital forensics.
before they can put it in front of the jury. And whoever the video is not good for, that side will argue that the video shouldn't be allowed. That's just the game. That's how trials work. It's not give them everything and let them decide and determine what the truth is. It's a big game as far as what they allow them to see and not see.
Same. Okay. So yeah, so there's a few lessons from this. Again, I personally believe there was no racial content for Carmelo Hunt. I don't think Carmelo decided to wake up, I'm going to kill a white boy and then try to claim self-defense. I think it was just ego. And, a 17-year-old boy, oh boy, no ego there. No threat to his
Oh
manhood.
yeah, yeah.
But, again, he went into a place where, he was technically not to be allowed. Maybe he could have stood his ground, like this is a right. But in the end, it looks to me that he was willing to kill rather than back down and look like a weakling in front of the crowd. And as a result, he's looking at like 99 years possible jail time and somebody's dead. Does this, I mean, how does it look to you? And what lessons should we take in like not getting into fights if we don't have to?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you nailed it. I think it is. And I've been there. You were there when you were younger. And that's the thing. We live and we don't go to jail, we don't get killed. We live long enough to look back and say, damn, were we stupid at times and really lucky. Because
Mhm.
I've been there. You want to go? Let's go. And luckily, never got killed, never got put away forever. I've been arrested, and hurt. I've been hurt. I've hurt others and I've had cops after me and those things, but never killed anybody, never went to prison for it. So I was lucky. If anybody can learn a lesson from somebody else, younger folks should be listening to us older guys, whether it's you with me and Mark McYoung, Peyton Quinn, all these older guys that are telling these lessons about it's okay to walk away. It's okay to check your ego and not let your ego drive you into something stupid.
And on a related note, I'm just going to point this out that somebody else said to me, I go, that's right. Every time I have ever fought over pussy, I didn't get any that night. But on that
Well,
note,
and
I
that
think,
no, and again, and those are all ego things too. It is. And sometimes, it's natural. I mean, and you could have told the 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old me back when I was in high school in the military this stuff, and I probably wouldn't have listened.
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. When you're in the monkey dance, you can't tell that you're in the monkey dance. And maybe friends might help out. It's like, Don, back down. This isn't worth it or whatever. But coming up on our time, I'd really like to appreciate, you coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. I'm going to link to both the arrest report and to your Amazon page for your books and stuff like that because they are excellent stuff. I've got at least three of your books. So,
Thank you.
and they are on my recommended list. Any parting thoughts?
I appreciate you having me on, and for everybody listening, just realize that self-defense, when it comes down to it, is to keep you from being harmed. And if you can keep yourself from being harmed by avoiding and staying out of a conflict, even if that means turning tail and running your ass as fast as you can, that's going to keep you out of prison and out of the morgue and always be your best bet.
Thank you very much for that. Have a good night.